This is part 2 of July 7th, outcome-based massage on relaxation.
So, have any of you seen people that have said, "Oh, I don't do fluff and buff"? Now, I do therapeutic. I do. I saw you. Yeah. All right. So there is no such thing in fluff and buff unless you're not engaged with your client and you're just going through the motions. And we've already talked about how that's not appropriate, right? We've got all of this around the idea of our environment, which needs to have a sense of safety, a sense of hygienic, a sense of it being comfortable, but it also needs to be professional. It can't be too homey because then people are going to be confused. They're going to be confused about what's going on. When I went into people's homes, I always set up a space, a unique space. And as soon as you got into that space, that's the way it was. And I didn't go anyplace else other than that space or the restroom or something. And I always wore a uniform. And, it's always, got that, okay, habituation. I get it. I know what we're doing. There's no confusion here. And you have to educate a new client in the beginning. You have to do that. And a lot of times people run into difficulties as time goes on because they didn't do a very good job at that. And then you have to backtrack because the behavior isn't working. Alright, so explaining the ideas of pressure and re-educating them about pressure. All of us right now as a massage community have got to re-educate the general public about deep tissue massage because it's hurting the massage therapy community and it's not necessarily value to the client. So most of the time in this general, our movements we're going to be doing all the movements. The client is going to be fairly passive, not a lump, right? They're going to want to give general feedback. Our initial assessment in this is not to look for what's wrong, and it's not to deal with what's wrong. All right, that's later. It is to screen for contraindications and cautions. That's what we do in the beginning. Is there a place that I need to avoid? Do I have to modulate pressure a little bit because there's a persistent bone density issue in an area? Are you taking a medication that makes you more prone to a histamine response? It's that. But it's not move this, move that, do this, do that. It's not, you may be crooked. That's fine. You're alive. Somehow or another, this has worked for you, right? It could be the best your body's going to do. It's not that. It's not results oriented. It's experience oriented. And it has just as much value as if somebody came in with a ABC condition and you pushed on something and inadvertently they felt better. Just because the two happened at the same time doesn't mean one caused the other. If you do massage in this general approach, you're not going to hurt anybody. I don't care how complicated they are. Only when you start doing interventions or you start getting aggressive with stretching are you going to hurt somebody. Do something that is going to end up with an adverse effect. So massage then in this vein is very safe. So the environment, understanding the importance of you breathing. Don't worry about your client breathing. You breathe. They'll eventually follow along. Trying to make somebody who is a little anxious breathe a certain way is going to end up making them more anxious. That needs to be a gradual outcome of their body's ability to breathe better. and then maybe they'll need some breathing retraining. But I really don't like it when somebody says, now just breathe through it. If somebody has to breathe through it, you're pushing too hard. Or you're in the wrong spot, or you're poking them. And if somebody wants to hold their breath, I don't care if they hold it. Now just breathe. Now just breathe. You know, you tend to your own breathing as part of your grounding response, and you observe theirs. When they start to be able to take a fulfilling inhale and a longer exhale, you know that you're achieving some of your goals with anti-arousal parasympathetic response. If you tell them how to breathe, you've lost it. You've lost your ability to sense that and to identify that.
And just simple things we covered a little bit, but regarding all of this, just making sure they're comfortable. So all the bolstering tricks that we've shown, especially with low back dysfunction, remember the pillow under the tummy, all that kind of stuff, making sure the bolstering is good and temperature is good. Most people respond better to heat, right? So warmth tends to be the component that relates most to parasympathetic constructs. So the table warmer, hot packs, hot towels, heat as a piece to this is very helpful.
And if their feet are cold specifically, it will not let them relax.
The temperature of the room, you gotta have the temperature right for you, but that's where if the table can be warmed directly or an extra blanket, then you can pretty much, you can bake them, they'll be fine. But even if they're too hot though, I had to deal with that a lot. So being comfortable, again, this is the interface with the client, but simple things like bolstering and temperature, these are easy things to control. And then other pieces, if people respond well to something like the weighted blankets, boy is that a helpful component, because maybe I don't have to fight with some weird trigger point in their hamstring, but if I just let that weighted blanket sit on their legs while I'm working on their back, working on their arms,
and then you pass them around.
So, but I use these all the time in the with the PTs and in the athletic setting in particular. This is kind of a weird hand around. We do get to play with one.
I'll play with that.
Let's see.
We've got more over
I
there.
think this one has a hot pack in it. Is there a hot pack hiding in these? I think these have some in there.
So what these are sensory lap pads.
Yeah, I knew there was one in there. So I think that one has one in there.
I ordered them from a place called the Therapy Shop. They are not cheap.
No. You could try to make them yourselves, but it's just, and never microwave sand, by the way.
It turns into glass.
Don't microwave sand. If you built these out of rice, then you could, but don't microwave sand.
Or the plastic beads that are in there.
But the hydroculator, clay-based hot packs, okay? Clay is heavy. You can buy the medical grade big giant clay ones, but they're not cheap either. But those you can microwave, or you can put in the fridge and cool down. So clay, and it's also the tend to use in the big hydroculator ones that are soaked in the big vats of hot water. Just that machine is expensive and kind of messy. But one of the biggest benefits of it is that the clay was heavy. I didn't even care if the pack was all that warm or not. I would have this big, just weighted object to throw on a whole section of the body. Like being able to just put this on somebody's low back, so they're laying on their stomach, I put the pillow under them, that decompresses the lumbar spine. I put a big chunk of weight with some heat on it, and I just let that do the work. And I'm up there worrying about their neck and shoulders and arms, and this can be just sitting there with sustained compression, doing something very passive, very broad and general, and the outcome will be very profound for me, not having to do anything other than that.
And you
But
put,
$60.
all right, now, but you can use them over and over. And I did some searching, I looked on Amazon, I've got a couple that are ordered, they're probably on my porch.
Well, I think this is a Michigan company too.
Yes, it
So,
is.
support the
They're over in
local
Kalamazoo.
economy, there you go. Oh, yeah.
These are the beads that you can heat, and you can put one or two of them.
These you can
in
find
there.
all over Amazon, netted beads, these have been pretty workhorse, we've only had a few break down on us, right? But they've done pretty good.
6 years.
You can see how the sizing is just right, where it slots in with these weighted blankets pretty good.
They come, the ones that are from the therapy shop they come with these
Yeah,
covers that you can wash, you can launder, but we put these in a pillowcase.
yeah. Cause then you just have to usually only launder the pillowcase.
And do that, we use 2 at a time. And it's our most popular add-on. And once people get it, they keep getting it typically. We also have, you wanna run and get one of the stones, the synergy stones?
They're not that far.
I have a question. What would be like a fair price to do like an add-on for something like that?
Alright, so let me answer that with a broader response.
Okay.
When you're thinking of your fees, you wanna think about, how am I going to, cause these are also weight and heat or cold. So we can pass these things around.
So once you buy them, there isn't any more buying to do.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna tell you, cause I haven't got your question.
No,
Don't do the hot stone thing, don't do the Himalayan rock salt thing, get these. This is a small company out of Colorado, I don't even know who, I've never, communicated with them directly, but then there's all different sizes and shapes, and yup, they're expensive, but they're the thing.
They can be microwaved and they're non-porous. So the thing is that, yes, I get the thing about the real stone that you found under the waterfall. Like I get that it is powerful, but rocks are porous. They're harder to keep sanitary. You have to soak them or boil them in things, okay? These are non-porous, can just be wiped or washed, and you're done. And then number one concern, you have to have is sanitation.
what is the
So if
company called for them?
Synergy stone, the synergy stones. So synergy is everyone.
I checked the website for them, they were out of stock for a while, and now they've got stuff back in stock.
You guys will play around with those. So these, you just can microwave them for 1 minute, done.
We just keep them in the towel caddies sometimes and they're too hot.
Towel caddies, yeah.
Yeah, alright.
Microwave 1 minute, you're done, there you go.
Weight and temperature, weight and temperature. So back to your question. Do you charge extra for these or is it inclusive? There is a trend to not, it's 6 one, half dozen other. There is a trend to have an all-inclusive pricing where you have a price point that you set for your services or the business has set for its services, and you can include any or all of these add-ons as a therapist, you feel is needed. There's an upside to that. You got a lot of freedom, people aren't having to make choices, whatever. But that's gonna bring your price point up. Now, some of these actually make your life easier, like the suction cups and the weighted hot packs and all that kind of stuff. The other philosophy is to have a base price for your base service that is fitting your demographic. So our demographic here in the Lapeer area, what is our member price for it's 60. 59.
60 for the first percent of the month, and then it goes down to 50. Add-ons tend to be around $10. So this kind of environment lends itself to that because it's also a way for the therapists to get a chunk of that. They get that $5 of that 10.
Is that a 30-minute or a 60-minute?
60.
60. So for every add-on, that's an extra bump on the service, right? So if somebody gets a couple add-ons, you know, that can offer a lot of extra value for the therapist and how they're getting paid.
But it
That's an
also,
employed situation versus when I was in practice, especially when going to homes, things like a weighted blanket and the taping, kinesthetic taping. I didn't charge for that. I just had it as an option embedded into the price, but there was a premium for me showing up to your house and anything, everyways. So the idea was, I will offer you a premium service. You can opt in or out on these things. But something like this, the tape costs a little bit, but these aren't incredibly expensive. You know, a little bit of essential oils, sure, incorporated in. But that's where you have to be more aware of your overall costs. If you're incorporating, we'll get to the CBD and essential oil piece. But those are gonna be products that you work your way through and have to then buy again. Versus this, although it's heavy to take with you, you know, almost everybody has a microwave in their house, so I could just, once it pays for itself, then I'm done.
yeah, these have held up really well. They're 60 a piece. Now, I preemptively ordered some, because the last time we taught these, everybody wanted to buy them, and I had to go. I said, go order them yourself from the therapy shop, you know, so, anyway.
We're gonna start having, just like how like the step stool thing and try to have more stuff available here.
And, well,
So
I'm
you
not
guys
making
are- you
anything
guys are
on,
ordering
it's
that
just,
You are ordering that stuff.
yeah. So,
Thank you.
each business, because if you're self-employed, you are your business, right? You have to decide which way you want to do that. My philosophy is in our demographic that we need to keep the base price as affordable as we can manage, and still pay people fairly, and eventually, maybe we get paid, okay? And then it allows us to let people pick and choose based on their availability of, their resources, on what they find beneficial. That's our philosophy. Having it all inclusive and charging 80 is another way to do that. All right, there is no right or wrong in all of that. So what are you doing where you're at?
I mean, in terms of,
Of add-ons and that sort of stuff.
there's some of the massage therapists who do, like there's one lady, she does like salt scrubs, and I've done one, and I used to work at a spa, and I just don't, you know. So we have some of those things available, but we ended up taking out hot stones because no one wanted to do it. I didn't want to do it. I don't really, can I? Yes. Do I like it?
No, it's a real nightmare.
It's a mess.
These are easy.
Yeah, we have sugar scrub and stuff like that, but I think I've heard from everyone that usually the least favorite is the hot stone,
It's a
right?
mess. It's just
That or
not
sugar scrub, I've
doing-
heard, but usually from everybody, I would get annoyed with the sugar scrub, because every day we kept on chasing particles all over the place. It drove me nuts when I was doing it.
No,
I like doing all those things.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
those
See,
are fun.
that's the thing, is that then there's even the whole mud mask treatment thing over there.
Well, and there's the hot oil scalp massage.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Everybody
people
loves
love
that
that.
one, everybody
You know,
loves that.
and if they love it and it is pleasurable, it's therapeutic.
And talk about, now that hits a mark, because usually an easy go-to in terms of just your actual massage routine, relaxation, more hands and feet. Scalp. You know, it used to be face, head, now we're sometimes a bit more limited these days with, you know, it's pre and post-pandemic world, right? But even just scalp, head, hands, feet, not based towards an outcome, it's a fantastic sensation with a lot of nervous system input. But using something plus with a hot oil, now you have temperature and oil and scent component embedded into a tactile component. It's a perfect example. Sugar scrub for hands and feet. It's a perfect example of another thing. There's a couple elements hitting the body and their system at once, right? So the hot oil thing is kind of a westernized variant of the Ayurvedic oil stuff that sometimes would be focused more like it would, it's an outright like a pitcher of oil.
That drips on
in your hair.
I'll think personally, I started doing cupping a couple of years ago, that I told Sandy, I just started messing around with blading. But I wanna use those things, so if a client needs it, I do it, you know what I mean? But I know some places it's a real specific, you have to pay extra, and I think in my business they're supposed to. But, I'm frustrated if I can't do it, do you know what I mean? If I know this is gonna be effective, so I just do it. I feel like I have my toolbox, and whatever that client needs, that's what I'm gonna use.
Well, and we have in the towel category, we have hot towels.
Yep.
Wet and dry, and there's a hot pack in there, and it's at the therapist's discretion.
And next month, when we're talking more outcome for pain and mobility, cupping and taping, cupping in particular.
I
I
love the cupping.
you
I
can't,
use a lot of it.
yeah, you can't do that effect on the tissue. That doesn't apply as much for our relaxation goal today, but for other outcomes, specifically pain related, connective tissue based, cupping is just spectacular.
So let's talk about essential oils or topicals.
Yeah, topicals.
Topicals that I've got up there. Because we've talked about texture, we've talked about pressure, weight. Some people like the smoothness of those synergy stones, some people like the scrapiness of dry brushing. So there's value in all of that, and that's all within our scope of practice. We can do those things.
Now, we're gonna assume or we're just assuming. We can't go into everything regarding aromatherapy. This isn't a day focused on aromatherapy.
Right.
So that still exists, right? I love her strategy in general. For those that haven't heard it, if you have a bar of essential oils that you're using, you can have a person, they open them up and check them out, pick the two they absolutely love, one that they hate, and create a nice little combination. And it's really a slick way for them to kind of personalize the thing, or even if they just pick one or two that they like and you combine them, or just the one by itself, it's fantastic. And then you can incorporate it the whole way. And certain things like your mints, for example, will have an actual effect on the tissue similar to biofreeze, which is the menthol base, but peppermint and spearmint have the same sensation as a menthol based application.
Like icy.
Be careful with your hot oils. Be careful with those. Clove and things like that, you can make sure you're diluting it correctly if you're using those. We don't even have the hot oils available over there because it's not worth the safety concern. Now the other aspect is the CBD thing. This is real trendy, right? But this has an actual, just like essential oils, has a truly valid chemical, biologically plausible effect on the body. Now, the thing that I want to reinforce is that, like, this right here is pretty basic. It's just CBD in like nut oils, or not nut oils, like coconut oil, like food grade oils. This says it has essential oils in it. When I looked into it, it's like it's jojoba and grapeseed and stuff like that, right? Most of the CBD topical ointments and oils that you will see have a lot of essential oils with them as well, okay? So most of the higher, more expensive CBD based topical products I've seen have, like, not even gonna exaggerate, at least 5 essential oils in there as well, if not more.
Some sort of a blend.
A big blend of essential oils plus the CBD. So I remember this one company that I looked at the ingredients list, and it was this giant paragraph, and almost all of it was essential oils. So when you put this on a person's body, boy, something felt like it was happening to you. Whether it was the essential oil or the CBD, who knows? But it allows you to also potentially combine those elements as well, either individually, just the CBD, or just the aromatherapy essential oil but you could combine the two.
Now, these are chemicals, they do get in through the skin, into the capillary beds, they are, because they're a lipid base, therefore they can be dangerous and they can cause a reaction. So you've got to be careful when you start adding in your topicals. Safety first, safety first, safety first. A lot of people will have a trigger response to a migraine, or they'll start sneezing, or whatever. If you are gonna use essential oils and or the CBD product, go basic, not complicated.
You don't need a lot.
No,
Make
you don't.
sure you know your company, and make sure you're clear with your client.
You like Mountain Rose.
Yeah, now I have a brand that I like, I mean, I just order through Mountain Rose Herbs.
But nobody's regulating this.
That's
okay?
the
So you have to go and find a company that transparently shows you how they're processing
I go
their
through
products,
doTERRA.
because nobody is actually overseeing it of any real authority.
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause I have a massage therapist I exchange with, and like her dad makes it, so I'm sure it's strong.
Mhm.
But she said, you know, if you use this, if you get drug tested, well, I'm not gonna get drug tested.
The CBD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
it's full spectrum.
It's full spec, so this is where I'm a little bit like,
So,
about it,
so this
because
is not,
This is not,
This isn't,
that's the difference.
but most, now arguably, it doesn't matter what it is, okay, even nutritional supplements, stuff like that. There's a camp that I do understand that indicates that if you're really gonna get the most profound effect of the compound, you should get as much of the plant with it as possible. And this is hemp, CBD is hemp, not cannabis, okay?
Yeah, I checked
So-
out that website and
yeah.
it says 0%.
So rethink as a company where they do this cold processing process, where they retain as much of the secondary plant compounds, but they take out all the THC, any of the underlying residual THC. So this is a company that has no THC in it whatsoever, so that but you still get as much of the other underlying hemp plant compounds, versus there are companies that are gonna be purely refined, where there's less of that, and it's only the CBD, no THC, and then there's companies where it's all of the plant compound, like Charlotte's Web, Thera One, that has all of it in there. And now, it'd be pretty unlikely people would test positive, but you're stuck in that position of having to err on the side of caution, and tell people if you're using a CBD that comes from the whole plant, that there's a chance that they could test
And
positive.
we're not
So-
selling a product, this happens to be the one that Massage Green has chosen.
Yep.
And they chose it for the reasons,
Because it doesn't have THC in it.
yeah, you know, and liability issues and all of that. So I wanna show you how we dispense the essential oil.
Well, you did, somebody said something about, make sure the oils are diluted correctly, for crying out loud.
So this is filled with jojoba. You can buy these bottles, I think they're 30 cents a piece or whatever. It's got a little roller bottle.
And why jojoba? Anybody know?
It's a carrier.
And why it's, you know, it's more expensive, but if you're gonna pick one,
It's not a nut oil and it has very little likelihood of an allergic reaction.
and it's the closest pH to your body's natural skin. So
It's an ester, it's like your own skin.
So if you're gonna pick a carrier oil, jojoba, with the J's, jojoba.
It
Jojoba,
also
And-
doesn't go rancid, right?
Well,
Or
it's
does-
because it's
Not rancid, but it goes old. I have some.
yeah, you could, any oil.
well, but it's all of its electrical bonds are in place, so it has a saturation component because it's an ester. It's different than an oil.
I would push you to pick that over your coconut and olive oils, like that's not the worst, but it's not as good for your skin, frankly.
Yeah, and if you're gonna go to coconut, but some people are very sensitive to that, but
Yeah.
it's got all this molecular bonds full, so it has less of a tendency to go rancid.
The other option is your grapeseed oil. That's another that's a longer shelf life. The longest shelf life I know of is grapeseed oil, and that's also very safe. Very few people have.
It's a
Very,
seed
very,
as
very
opposed
rare
to
to
a
have.
nut.
And the
Yeah.
biotone or lotions that we use here too, those have the sesame, the grapeseed and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So,
I think some almond.
so sometimes if I am going to apply essential oils, which I never usually do on their first initial massage.
Right.
Their initial massage, I stay really safe. When they come in the second time, if their legs are cramping, I'm gonna put some lemongrass, but I do it with the lotion too, because the lotion's gonna dilute it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, always, always, and put it someplace where they can't get it in their eye.
Yeah. So part of it too, if I'm gonna pick a place that's likely to that absorbs more readily into the body, your hands and your feet, but don't put it.
I don't put it on their hands, they're gonna get it in
their
their eye.
So if you're gonna really pick a spot, one, they should smell it. There's something to the olfactory effect. So a little bit like, near the face cradle or something goes a long way. Something on the chest is good, especially if it's like, a eucalyptus experience. But you really want a place where it's gonna absorb well, feet. And they can't get their foot in their eye unless they
Well,
really
they really
try.
gotta be, they're really a little hyper flexible. if they're
But very safe place, that and or on the area, the body area.
So we take this size bottle, make it 3/4 full with the jojoba, and then no more than 3 or 4 drops of whatever. Up to 6 is absolute, a drop. All right, and this has a little roller ball on it. This doesn't have anything in it, because I don't know what sensitivities are. So,
And if you're really gonna pick, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously lavender is a pretty safe.
flowers are usually pretty
Flowers,
safe.
your citruses, your lemongrasses, your grapefruits, your sweet oranges.
But there is photosensitizing, so
You
what
gotta
are the
watch
ones
for
that we
sun.
have?
That is an important point. You gotta watch for people getting sun exposure.
Yeah,
Secondary.
these
to
are
having
more
the oil.
dangerous. There are many, many more cautions to this than there is the hot pack. Now there are some things with the hot pack, don't put them directly on the skin, right? Or your ice, don't put it directly on the skin, put it on top of the sheet.
No, I've begun to just not care what people do on their own time, but I strongly tell you not to tell people to drink oils. Stop that.
Yeah,
People have died. Stop it.
people are gonna ask you, do I take them internally, do I do this, do I do the other,
I was just talking with a client that was using a diffuser, and she thought she had fibrosis, and it turned out that she had oil deposits.
yeah.
It's just like saying burning candles isn't breathing in smoke, right? Yeah. Burning in candle fumes is just as bad as being around like a campfire or a bunch of tobacco smoke. Think about what you're breathing in.
Also remember your exposure. The client is gonna have a limited exposure to these things. You're gonna be having, if you're using an essential oil, you're gonna be exposed over and over and over to different oils without it necessarily being something that's compatible with where you are. So,
Be mindful of your own health.
lot more to consider with these.
Now, as far as I know, isolated CBD is also very, very safe. The-
I'm gonna
the-
pass
the-
this around so you can
The
see
component
bottom.
I want to, and we'll have this available if anybody wants to, this isn't particularly potent, so I mean, you're not gonna feel like a sudden miracle effect. But CBD in general, very, very, very safe. Be careful that the many companies embed it in all the other stuff, right? So if you have a CBD product, like anything, make sure you're looking at the ingredients list. And if you have a CBD product with a ton of other essential oils, and you have to think more profoundly than if it's something like this. This is about as clean and safe and non-invasive as it's gonna get.
So what we do is we put that on their feet, we roll it, go on their feet, roll it up and down their spine,
Yeah, there is.
maybe put a little bit
It's
here
on
on
the-
the chest so that
it's just
they
the
can
carrier oil.
smell it, cause they don't think they're getting anything if they can't smell it. And we give them the bottle to take home.
Should I pass this around?
Yeah, you can make,
You make
and there are a
yourself-
lot of
don't make
products.
yourselves too
This
oily.
isn't about a product, there's
This
a lot
is a
of
dropper
products.
in it, so if you're gonna put any on yourself, just be, aware that it's.
Sanitary, I'm not having to,
all dropper.
and there isn't anything in this. Now, this is gonna enhance or prolong the effect of wellness relaxation, right? And it's a nice to give them, same with that now, that's an expensive packaging. We are shifting to a less expensive packaging of that, so that we can we can maybe make $1 on it. Right now, we're not making anything on this, the business isn't making anything on the CBD because of how much it costs and the packaging and then how much we pay the
It's
therapist.
a $20 upgrade to
Yeah.
get the whole jar, but then you get to take, you get it incorporated in the massage and you get to take the remainder home with you, but that's relatively expensive, right? However, things like this, if a person finds it works well for them, this is a very easy, safe means for them to do something for their own self-care.
Yes,
Now, not everybody's gonna respond very profoundly to aromatherapy or CBD, but if they do, then hey, that's a super easy way to be able to help their sleep quality and stuff.
and you
My
can,
girlfriend, for example, didn't respond quite as strongly to the tinctures, but for her, it helped a ton to do that's the under the tongue stuff. But for her, she was more sensitive to the CBD than I was.
and there's
and
a
it
lot of
worked great.
crap out there. So if you're gonna use a consumable product, be buyer beware on what it is. But anything that we have talked about that goes along with the things we talked about, the ambiance and all of that becomes health messaging for your client. They can buy a hot pack. They can make one.
Go get a weighted vest, so.
Actually, weighted, that they do it for people who, for the sensory stuff. But a weighted vest will keep your shoulders down and you will breathe better. If it works for somebody that has a sensitivity, it's gonna work for everybody. So these can then be maybe a little bit of retail. You can put a modest markup on stuff for the convenience of having it available.
That isn't bunk, and if it works for a person, then they have something very tangible and easy to incorporate in their life. Like you don't have to go through an hour routine. You can put the thing on the hurting spot, and sometimes just having something constructive to do in response to the issues you're having. We're all gonna have something chronic, right? But if I have something constructive that I can do rather than just endure it, there's even something psychological about that process. Oh, it hurts, I have this oil, I put it on there, I did something.
And in the pain, when we talk about pain, we're gonna talk about ice. Ice, cold, is one of the absolute best pain control measures you can use.
And for itch, by the way.
Yeah,
You got
for a
mosquito
variety of reasons. So, now, if we are gonna expand this whole idea into stress management, guess what? Pretty much all the same.
Big breathing, the one thing from last month that I had a bit of an aha moment about was